It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Property Podcast. It is episode 74 and we have got a jam-packed episode for you this week. I'm Rob B. With me, as always, is Rob D. Hey Rob, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. Yeah, we have got a packed episode. We're talking about 7 ways to stay on top of the property market. There's loads of really good stuff in here. And as if that wasn't enough, we've got a resource of the week, of course, a news story, of course, which puts our listeners in an excellent light, and 1 or 2 bits of news as well. There's a heck of a lot going on, Rob.
There's loads. So should we dive into the news first of all? Because, yeah, this is the biggest news, Rob. It's hard to rank all this because there's so much going on. But launching Yellow, yeah, absolutely. That's been huge for us. And I know we both just want to say a massive thank you to all the people who've left messages of support, who've expressed an interest, over 200 people. So that's a great start for any letting agent. So just blown away with the reaction to it. Loving the website as well. We think it's pretty slick. So if you haven't had a look yet, go to yellowlettings.net. That's been dominating a lot of our time this week, Rob.
It has been. It's been a heck of a week. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's showed an interest and given their support so far. We know this is the easy bit. It's only going to get harder, but it's a heck of a lot of fun at the moment. But that's not all we've been doing. We've also got another free course up in the Property Hub. So in the Property Hub, we add a new course every month. The majority of them you have to pay for unless you're a Property Hub Plus member. We like to throw in a freebie every so often. This month, we've added a free course on buying below market value. So it's one of those topics that comes up every so often. We sort of mentioned BMV in passing most weeks probably, but this course is just 15 minutes long. It's a really quick way if you're not quite sure exactly what we mean by BMV or exactly how to go about securing a below market value property. It gives you everything you need to know about that. It's a really great overview. So if you want to watch that course for free, you can just go to thepropertyhub.net/products.
Yep, it's a really good course, and I would say that because I did it. But no, we've had some nice feedback on that one too already. It's only been in the hub for a short while, and people seem to be getting a lot out of it, so make sure you check that one out. Next, Rob, just because we're getting a bit bored and we haven't got much on, we're launching a book.
Obviously, yeah.
So, Rob, you know, you're the experienced author. Why don't you guide everyone through what we're doing? Okay,
so the idea is we're compiling a book under the Property Hub brand of property tips. So it's going to be a big collection of, well, Rob, off air last week, you described it as the property version of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so I don't know. So we've got lofty aspirations for it in terms of sales figures. I haven't actually read that book, so I don't know if it's accurate. But what we're going to be aiming for is a big collection of tips categorized under different headings. So there's going to be, however experienced or inexperienced you are in property, there's going to be at least something that you can pick out and that's going to make a real difference to you. We don't want it to just be us. Because if you're a listener to the podcast, you probably know most of our tips already. So, although there's going to be a lot from us in there, we're also inviting in a lot of guest experts. So a good portion of the book is going to be made up of experts in their particular field who are going to be giving you their top property tip. But we also want to get yours because you don't have to be some kind of acknowledged known expert to have a really good piece of advice. So we are asking our listeners and our Property Hub members to contribute a tip, and we're going to be picking out the best ones to go in the book. So if you've got something that you want to share, all you have to do is go to thepropertyhub.net/booktips. That's thepropertyhub.net/booktips, all one word. And there'll be a little form on there where you can just fill in your piece of advice. And you don't have to worry about how it's written or anything like that because we're going to rewrite it so the style is consistent. All you have to do is get the idea across. So we can't promise to use everything, but we'd really like you to submit a piece of advice. Anything that you've learned. You don't have to be some kind of tycoon. You could just have one property and have learned something really valuable from it that you want to share. So just get over to thepropertyhub.net/booktips. And we're throwing a lot of web addresses at you at the moment. So as always, if you want to have everything in the same place, and there's going to be even more as we go through the episode, go to the show notes for this episode, which are at thepropertyhub.net/up-to-date, all one word, because we're talking about keeping on top of the property market. So it's /up-to-date, and you'll find all the links for everything we talked about, including the form to submit your property tip.
And because we're so busy, Rob, I don't think this next announcement will come at much shock, but RMP is hiring. Yes, so RMP Property, based in London, we're hiring. We're looking for property consultants. So if you're somebody who's keen to learn about property, you already know a bit about property, you're a great person. Great person is mandatory. So if you're a great person and you have a keen interest in property, then why not get in touch? We're not looking for a certain type of CV. You know, it's about the people. Skills can be taught, but someone's personality is ingrained in them. So if you're outgoing, if you're friendly, if you're someone who's good with other people, then please do get in touch. You can go to the propertyhub.net/property jobs. That's the propertyhub.net/property jobs. And that's where all the job listings are for different people. But of course, the one you want to look out for is the RMP one. And if it's not for you, let someone else know about it.
So I think that's enough for this week. Loads going on. Sorry to bombard you with all that. That's us talking about ourselves. Now let's talk about you. So, Rob, let's get into the iTunes reviews.
Yeah, so we're going international. If you're a long-time listener, you know we've done international reviews before. But I think it's been good part of a year since we've done international. So we don't want to ignore you. And if you're an international listener and you haven't left a review yet, leave one, because we're going to be coming back to them over the next couple of weeks. So let's go around the world, Rob, and a round of applause to the following. Ad74529 in Australia, they have funny names over there, don't they? Says, inspirational and educational. What a great resource I've found this week. We're moving back to the UK from Australia at the end of the year with the goal of starting a property investment portfolio to give us the freedom for a better work-life balance, as we have 2 children with special needs. I truly believe that having listened to your podcasts will have a huge impact on the outcome of our endeavours. Your passion for property, business and success is contagious. But what really makes you guys stand out from the crowd is your holistic approach to personal development and the integrity of your message. The advice about books, resources, geeky tech tools is superb. I'm only up to episode 16. Keep up the good work, guys, and thanks. That's superb. Rob, I hope you got your plane ticket, because we're going to Canada now. And Russ G80 says, loving the show from TO. A great show that is both informative and fun. Since moving to Toronto, Canada, I've pretty much given up on property investment in the UK, especially after the crash. However, Rob and Rob have given me a renewed confidence that I can still succeed, even though I'm miles away. Keep up the good work, Russ. Well, thank you very much. And we've got some other cool places to go to around the world over the next few weeks. So if you are an international listener and you want to leave a review, make sure you do it now, because we'll read them out. Okay, so news this week, Rob. Not a lot of investors know what they're doing, but of course this doesn't apply to our podcast listeners or Hub members.
Yeah, I love this story because I thought it might make all our listeners feel very smug. Because the story is that fewer than half of buy-to-let investors know what they're doing. Apparently, according to this survey, only 18% said that they did a lot of research before they got into property. Apparently, only 7% of people either sought advice from a professional, consulted lawyers or accountants, or consulted a book written by an expert. Well, I should all read my book, shouldn't they? So I was just astonished by what a small percentage that was. So if nothing else, by listening to this podcast, you're putting yourself in the 7%, so you can feel very proud of yourself.
You certainly can. So well done, listeners, and well done us, Rob. I think we all feel a lot better. Thank you to whoever put that article together. Right. Okay. So our news topic of the week. We have a listener to thank, and it's Chris Ryder. Chris Ryder is a regular attender of the meetups. He's in the Property Hub, very active. So thank you, Chris, for this suggestion. Rob, what are we covering?
So we are talking about 7 ways to stay on top of the property market. You need to know what's going on in the property market, of course. Even however much you're investing for the long term, you need to know what's going on right now. But to do that, you need to do more than read the newspaper, because we all know how the media likes to spin stories, put a certain slant on things, and they're often working from figures which are out of date anyway, because the market's moving so quickly, especially at the moment, that by the time they're using like an indicator that lags by 3 months, things have moved on. So you need to know what's going on in your local area right now. So we've got 7 ways for you to do that, and even a couple of ways that you can see into the future a little bit as well. So let's get into them, and let's start off with an obvious one.
Okay, so it's simple, but it's effective. Ask an estate agent. Estate agents do get a bad rep, but for the most part, they actually do know what's going on. And most of all, particularly about their local area. So they'll know when property in their area is high in demand, but has short supply. They'll know if they're getting called out for more valuations than usual, which indicate confidence and new stock coming up. Open days. If you see open days starting to happen where open viewings occur, that's a sign that your market's starting to really move. There's lots and lots of indicators you can get from estate agents by either talking to them directly or just monitoring what they're doing. A pretty simple one, but actually, if you're interested in your local area or a particular area, what the estate agents are doing in that area gives you a big indicator. A prime example, I live in Hertfordshire, and here the estate agents are doing open days, getting multiple people viewing and offers going in even without viewings. I know that for a fact. But I've been looking at some property in another nice area further north, and they don't seem to have open days, and the stock seems to be on the market for a little bit longer, and not as much as coming onto the market as well. That shows me that the market hasn't kicked up in that particular area. Just viewing their activity and what's going on can give you a great insight to what's happening in the property market.
It certainly can. And another type of person you could ask is a surveyor. And surveyors are a source of frustration for property investors a lot of the time, because they can have some pretty strange views about how much a property is worth, and it can really put a spanner in the works for your plans. But they do see a lot of property. They're out looking at a ton of property every single day, and they're talking to the lenders, to the agents, to the investors, to everyone. So they've got a pretty great overview of what's going on. They know what all the big local investors are doing. They know what the lenders are thinking. They can see from the valuations that they're giving which areas are creeping up the fastest. So although they can put a spanner in the works for what you're trying to do, if you speak to your surveyor and have a conversation with them, you can pump them for all kinds of information. And because of the nature of what they do, they're in a position to see trends emerging in a way that lots of other property people will not be able to do. So don't write off surveyors as a source of information.
Absolutely. Surveyors, they can be a challenge. And I know we have surveyors listening, and I know you're not, you're the good ones. But in terms of a knowledge source, they can be outstanding. Okay, so next up, use Supla's current values section. So Supla, rival to Rightmove. We talk about Rightmove a lot, but Supla's very, very good too. And it gives you an estimated price for a broad postcode area or specific property. Now, be wary. Take the actual value with a pinch of salt, because it's often wrong, and in some cases wildly wrong. But you can pay more attention to the value change over time section. There's graphs there which don't just give you the area, but the type of properties as well. And because that's based over a longer time period, the data's more likely to be accurate. Don't use it as the only tool in your armory, and that's why we're giving you plenty, but it's certainly worth using just to give you that little bit more information.
Yeah, it is. And there's another website that I really like as well, which doesn't get talked about as much, and that is home.co.uk. And you can use this for a few different things. So if you go to home.co.uk and you select the prices and rents option, and then you enter any postcode you like, you can see all sorts of different reports, and each of those you can use to read into the health of the market in a different way. You can see current asking prices, for example. You can look at the asking price history over the last year. And you can also look at the overall time to sell for properties that have been listed in the last 90 days. And each of those reports has the data broken down by the type of property and by the number of bedrooms as well. So that gives some pretty fine-grained analysis there. And yeah, okay, asking prices are only asking prices. That doesn't tell you what they're actually selling for, but you can, of course, read into the kind of the mood of the market that way by seeing what asking prices are doing. And then, of course, you can cross-reference that with things like the sold prices report on Rightmove and the time to sell in the last 90 days. And that's quite up to date as well. So you can see how quickly stock seems to be turning over. There's quite a lot of data in there, none of which is going to give you the complete picture in itself. But this whole topic really is just about building up an overall picture from lots of disparate pieces of information. There's no one website you can go to or one person you can talk to who's going to tell you everything, because nobody knows everything. And the real situation is always going to be more nuanced than the data suggests. But home.co.uk is something that doesn't get talked about that much, but I think it's a useful tool in your tool belt.
And this next one's a clever tactic as well. It's compare offer and wanted sections for the rental market on Spare Room and Gumtree. So Spare Room and Gumtree both have sections for people offering property and for people wanting property. Spare Room is more for rooms, as the name suggests, but Gumtree is more for the whole property, but both are mixed. Now, on both sides, you can look at the number of properties being offered versus the number of properties being sought. If more people are looking than offered, it could imply strong demand and limited supply. And you record the ratio and track it over time. So it might be 2-1, then it might drift out to 3-1. There'll be different ratios, but then it can also help you assess it against different areas as well. So if you work out the ratios between offered and wanted, it can help you assess demand in different areas. Little clever tip, that one. Mr. Rob D can take credit for that one, but it's certainly one to use if you're detailed and you like that extra bit of research, because it can be very, very effective.
Yeah, so hopefully you're seeing now how you can sort of piece together lots of different pieces of information to build up an overall picture. So you wouldn't want to invest on the basis of what the ratios are on Spare Room, for example, but it's something that you can use. And by combining all the 5 things we've talked about so far, you should be able to build up a pretty good picture of what rental demand is like in an area, what's happening in terms of price movement, and so on and so on. But we want to go a little bit further than that. As well as knowing what's going on now, wouldn't it be nice if we can see into the future? There's a couple of ways that we can do that as well. One of those is to take a look at the Residential Development Land Index from Knight Frank. This is something that they bring out every so often. There's a link to the latest one, which is from Q1 2014. We'll put that link in the show notes, which are at thepropertyhub.net/up-to-date. Why is this important? Because this is about land rather than anything else. Well, when we talk about house prices, really, we're talking about land prices, because the cost of building a house in London versus Scotland is pretty similar. The cost of the materials is similar, the cost of the labour is similar. The difference is in the value of the land. And this is sort of tied in with the idea of the property cycle that we've been talking about recently. So although you're looking at land prices are a pretty good proxy for property prices. And according to Fred Harrison, who came up with this notion of the 18-year property cycle, house prices lag behind land prices by 18 months. The idea is, if you look at what's happening with land prices right now, that could give you an idea of what's going to happen to property prices in 18 months. And the great thing is, because it's kind of an advanced indicator from our point of view, even if you're looking at data which is from 6 months ago, you're still going to be a year ahead of the game. So you're not going to want to make your decisions based purely on this, but if you're trying to build up a picture of what's coming down the tracks, it could be worth keeping in mind.
Yeah, Rob and I, like looking to the future. We've done an episode on it recently, the 18-year property cycle, and then forward predictions episode as well, not long after that. So we like doing that. And another way of indicating future prosperity in an area is looking at government's infrastructure projects and regeneration projects that are going on. There's lots and lots going on, and there's lots of ways you can find out this data. There's 2 URLs, which we'll give you, but the website's called building.co.uk, and there's different long URLs, which I won't read out now, that we'll link to in the show notes. So make sure you go to the show notes, thepropertyhub.net/up-to-date to get these links. And also, Property Investor News, a monthly magazine that goes out. It's quite industry related, but the first section of that is all about redevelopment and regeneration projects that are going on across the country. And I find it a really useful guide to keep an eye on what's happening. So building.co.uk, free. And if you want to subscribe to Property Investor News, you can do that too. We'll link to it all in the show notes.
So there you go. 7 ways to stay on top of the property market. But we promised you 7. We like to give you a little bit extra. Let's have bonus number 8, shall we? And Rob, you've been very modest because you haven't mentioned Property News Radio, which is a great way of staying on top of what's happening in property. And it only takes you about 10 minutes or so. So it's a really quick listen put together by Mr. Rob Bentz and the RMP property team. And it will just give you the inside scoop on the major news stories of the week. So I'm not a big reader of the newspapers. I tend to get my news from elsewhere. I'm not even on Twitter as much as I should be, so often things will pass me by. But if I just listen to Property News Radio, 10 minutes and I'm up to date. So there's been loads of great tools that we've talked about in this episode, and there's another one for you. So if you're not subscribed to that, make sure you go over to iTunes and do that now.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, we've given you lots and lots of resources. In fact, it's probably one of our most packed resource episodes for a while. So, of course, our resource of the week, then we have to be silly. So we've lacked on the gag, so we've got to go for it in the resource of the week. We love this. In fact, we played it a good few weeks ago. We were passing it around our team, the people we work with, contractors and so on. And it's called North O-Meter. And it's absolutely brilliant. We'll link to it again in the show notes. But all you have to do is go to the website, click start, and then it'll ask you a few multiple choice questions. And then it will indicate how northern you are. Now, Rob, unsurprisingly, you weren't very northern.
Yeah, I'm even less northern than I thought I was. I'm officially 0% northern. I am as southern as they come. But then there weren't many questions about money. And if there had been, I think I would have been rapidly moving up the M1 because being tight with money is obviously a stereotypical northern characteristic, which wasn't as part of this quiz. So that might have skewed my results slightly. But yeah, 0% northern for me. I imagine you were a little bit more so.
I was, but not as high as you'd think. I've just retaken the test just to remind me, and it's come out about the same. 38% northern, and it says that's somewhere around Oxford. Now, you ranked in Jersey, I think, Rob, when yours came out. So I'm 38% northern. But to be honest with you, to be higher than that, you've got to be hardcore northern, I think. Maybe I've been softened by living down here too long. It's been over 5 years now, so maybe that's affected me. So I'm just 38% northern, so I apologise.
You can never go home again.
I know. I know. That's I should have lied. I'm like, yeah, 95%. I'm not sure how accurate this is, though. So, it may not be an exact science, but I'll tell you what it is. It's good fun.
It is. And with apologies to the international listeners who we referenced earlier, if they're not originally from the UK and they're sitting there going, what's chips with gravy got to do with a property? You have a look. It might not make total sense to you, but I'm pretty sure that it's good. It's a lot of fun for everyone else.
It is. We all had good fun with it, so I'm sure you will too. So bags and bags of resources this week. Go to thepropertyhub.net/up-to-date. Okay, so just a reminder, we've got the free below market value course on thepropertyhub.net now. It's free for everyone. So most of the courses are for the Property Hub Plus members, but this one's free. So learn how to find below market value property. And also, don't forget to contribute your tips for our upcoming book. Do you want to be a published author? Well, maybe you can be now. And all you have to do is submit one tip. And if it's a good one, you might get in. So the place to go for that is thepropertyhub.net/book tips. And then next week, Rob, we've been lazy because we've backed a lot in this week. So we've been lazy and we're stealing an episode from the lovely Pete Matthew.
Yeah, we are. That's going to be Property Investment Room 101. So we're positive kind of guys. We talk about the good stuff all the time, but we're just going to pack all the bad stuff into one episode. But we're going to try and make it fun as well. So it's not just going to be us moaning for half an hour non-stop. Do join us next week and check that out. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. Pete's episode was really good. So make sure you check out Pete Matthews' Meaningful Money 101. That was a really good episode. Really enjoyed that one. Okay, well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for all the support for Yellow Lettings. I really do appreciate it. And all the support in general. It's such a fantastic community. Talking of community, Rob, one very last mention. We're all getting together, aren't we, in a few weeks' time? In fact, it's coming up very soon. And that's in the King's Cross area. And the date for the next property podcast/hub meetup is the 27th of August. So yeah, we would love to see you there. If you haven't picked up your ticket yet, thepropertyhub.net/meetup. There's another web address for you. There's been so many today. We'd love to see you on the 27th if you can make it to London. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you to everyone who's listened. We'll be back next week with Property Investment Room 101. But until then, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to The Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com. And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.